Hello and welcome to the Mixed Media Podcast, where we talk about topics related to media in all three of our industries. So we do video game talks, music talks, and film talks, and somehow try to connect all three sometimes. We wanted to do our updated format as we spoke about like two podcast episodes ago or something like that, but this time we almost got it, but we couldn't quite get the interview this time. So hopefully next time we'll see. We'll be doing one Reddit recap or Reddit review rather by Ben, and then me and Irving will be doing normal topics like we used to do like in the olden days. I guess we'll introduce ourselves. So I'm Nathan Nestor. I'm a game developer and 3D modeler.
I'm Irving. I'm a filmmaker and media entrepreneur. I own a company called RAL, and I'm hearing myself in my headphones, so I'm tripping on my speech.
And I'm Ben Costello. I'm a flutist, flute player, and a media composer. I'm struggling with the fact that I can't see myself on my screen. So I don't know what's going on with this new Skype update that I have.
Yeah, how you guys doing?
I'm okay. Not too much new on my neck of the woods.
Not anything particularly new for me. Listening to a lot of music, playing music, trying to, network with other young people in the music industry.
All right, yeah, I guess I'll be starting with my topic, which is about digital distribution platforms, which are the modern way of buying games. So once upon a time, you used to go to GameStop or something like that to get your games. It's not really a thing anymore, at least
GameStop.
Not a very popular thing to do at all. Use online platforms such as Steam, Epic Games, or GOG. Those are the ones I'm really going to be talking about mostly. Like there are a bunch of other ones like Roblox or like the ones that they're only able to be used by the publisher slash developer themselves who developed it. So like Uplay for Ubisoft, Origin slash the EA app for EA, and Battle.net for, I think it was Activision Blizzard, I think. I'm not going to be talking about those stuff. And also not going to be talking about like Xbox Store, PlayStation Store, App Stores, literally just Steam, Epic Games, GOG. So just like public platforms, like as in public as in anybody can apply to be on the platform on PC specifically, excluding Roblox, because Roblox is weird. So we're going to have another episode about that one. So yeah, I'll be talking about how they're kind of tough. They're kind of tough on the indie game developer and tough on developers in general. Really, it was just of course, if you're tough on all developers, it's going to hurt the people who are smallest the most. But in general, some wackiness. Whether I don't know, I'm not really be pointing fingers in this case. I'm not really sure who's to blame. Whether it's the distribution platforms themselves, whether it's the consumers, whether it's the developers. They probably all have their hand in it in some sense. But I'll just get to it. What I'm complaining about. All these platforms are pretty different. Steam, Epic Games, GOG, right? So they all have their sort of pros and cons. Steam being like it has the biggest audience out of all of them by far. The downside being that Steam sales exist, which I'll get to later, and why that's like not good. Well, it's good in some sense. It's also not good in a different way. It's also Epic Games, where Epic Games might pay you if they really like your game idea to be a platform exclusive on the Epic Games Store. And you also get a higher revenue share for developers. I think they take 12%, but the GOG and Steam both take 30%, which is like a lot less, or a lot more, rather. And the GOG is a lot. So I sort of mentioned them in order of popularity. So you definitely heard of Steam, probably heard of Epic Games. You may have not heard of GOG. GOG is owned by CD Projekt, and CD Projekt Red is a child of CD Projekt. I believe GOG is that the same? It might be the same thing as CD Projekt Blue or something like that. I think it also has its own color or something like that. I don't remember, but GOG is owned by CD Projekt. It's a store, not just for CD Projekt Red games. It's for any game. The whole like unique thing about it is that all those games are DRM free. I don't remember what DRM stands for. Like, is it digital rights management? I think. Essentially, the thing in a game that makes sure that you're not stealing the game. Essentially, all GOG games must be DRM free. As an example, a lot of games do this, specifically multiplayer ones. If you try to join a multiplayer match, the game will check to make sure the license you have for the game is actually valid and that you didn't pirate the game, for example. And if it does look like you're using a pirated version of the game, it won't let you play multiplayer. Otherwise, it will let you play. The reason why GOG exists for, why would you want DRM free stuff, right? It's kind of a question is like, is it just like a pirating thing? Well, not really. There's some arguments to be made for it, such as the fact that like DRM in single player specifically is kind of nasty because in order for DRM to work, you essentially have to be connected to the internet. And so if you want to play a single player game, just maybe you have your laptop and you're, I don't know, on a road trip or something. I don't know, you're just not somewhere where you have Wi-Fi easily accessible. Then you can't. If you had a game that a single player and enforced DRM, as in like you literally must be connected to the internet at all times to play this game, and that kind of sucks. Or if you have a poor internet connection, I believe this is a problem with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The game does have both multiplayer and single player, but it definitely has a big focus on the single player instead. But I'm pretty sure the game locks you into an always on, like always connected to Ubisoft servers state. So I remember hearing people have these issues where the game randomly disconnects, maybe because their Wi-Fi cuts out for a moment or something. Just I don't know, just, unreliable Wi-Fi in a single player game. So there's a price to pay for DRM, but it's a topic for another time. I can do a whole video on DRM. And as well, GOG also asks us like a third option if you don't want to support Steam or Epic Games for whatever reason. It's like if the game's both. Some people will be like, oh, the game's on Steam and GOG. I'll just buy from GOG because Steam has some questionable business practices and stuff like that. Okay, so what are the actual problems with digital distribution? So the sales. I don't mean sales in how many times buying a copy. I mean sales in a discount. So I mean a discount sale. So Steam, Epic Games, and GOG will all have their classic. They'll have many sales throughout the year, but the big ones are the seasonal sales. So they have a summer sale, winter sale, fall sale, etc. And sometimes holiday sales too, stuff like that. The seasonal sales specifically are where the bulk of the sales happen. Wow, okay. I'm using the word sale a lot, and it can mean two different things. It can mean discount or it can mean like buying a copy of the game. I was using it in both senses. So let me restart using the terms correctly. So seasonal discounts are where most discounts happen, and they cause a bulk of the buys to happen for games, right? If you ever look at like a graph of some games buys in a given period of time, say a year, always be these massive spikes during these seasonal discount areas, and it'll usually be by far like that is essentially what's keeping the game alive. Is just those holiday sale periods essentially. It's kind of not good in a sense, right? Because what's happening is that in order to keep competitive, you have to you always see those memes with like Gaben, right? The dude who founded Valve, who owns Steam, and everything being like 75% off or 90% off, and ridiculous sales like that. Because it's true, there are sales like that, and the reason why they exist is to keep competitive. So during these holiday seasons, this is when all the developers are like, all right, time to make my season salary essentially. They're pushed to essentially like grind themselves to death by making their games 90% off to compete with the other ones. I'm not saying every game does that. Not every game, because the way it works essentially is you have to be invited to be in the summer sale. I believe Steam cites the numbers being like about the 20 to 30% of top selling games are invited to be part of the Steam summer sale. That's probably a lot more than it sounds like, because most games on Steam, as we talked about before, don't make much at all because they're just I'll make something, decide I'm going to put on Steam, and then they don't think about it again, stuff like that. So 20-30% is probably perhaps a majority of serious indie developers, essentially. So they're invited, and they can either choose to do it or not, and they can set their own discount price. So what happens is most people just do it because they know that everyone's going to buy all the other games during these sale periods, and they're not going to buy their game during the sale period. Now, the sale period is essentially like, especially for indie game developers, is crucial because it's kind of saddening, but a lot of times you see like reviews for games sometimes on Steam, and it's like, or not even just Steam, but elsewhere too, and they'll say like, this is a great game, I would recommend that you buy it when it's on sale. It's like, it is a great game, right? So why specifically on sale? Is because these sales happen very often, right? I cited that there are 4 seasonal sales plus the random holiday sales plus the sales they do in between, just for no event, just because they want to or whatever, right? You really don't have to wait long to find one of these sales, and once you do, you grab the $60 game for $20 or something like that, right? because why would you not do that when when there's really not that much time between having to buy between each sale, right? So it's sort of like, everyone's trying to stay competitive, so they reduce the price of the game during these sales, which sort of is a like endless cycle of people being like, oh well, they did it, so I have to do it, and I have to do even more this time, and stuff like that, all competing for everyone's buys essentially. Yeah, that's kind of sort of the problem with seasonal sales. It's going to bring the average cost of your game totally down, right? So a $60 game might on average sell for 20 or something like that, right? Well, $60 games tend to not be indie games, and it's usually the indie games that suffer most from this. But say a $20 game that ends up averaging like 15 or something like that, or it's kind of strange. And yeah, because they're so ubiquitous, they end up being expected by the consumers. So it's sort of similar to like the $60 price cap, right? Where I keep saying over and over again, it doesn't really make sense, not at all. Or the $30 standard, right? It's either $30 or $60. It doesn't really make sense, but it's expected by the consumer, and so that's just how it has to be, right? Essentially, until companies feel that there's too much pressure and they just decide that they have to break the barrier, right? Which is what we're seeing with the $70 price, the new $70 price cap, which isn't even like fully adopted yet, right? So, and yeah, Steam sort of acts like one of those like, sort of, because they have about like, their exact market share is unknown, but the numbers I see usually like hover between like 70 to 75% of market share for PC game distribution. They sort of they have incredible power in this, right? So if all these Steam sales are happening that have like these 75% off things, right? Like sort of like what are the people on the platform going to do, right? Are they going to go somewhere else where they don't have to compete with those kind of sales? Well, I mean, Steam has that 75% market share. Where else are you going to go? You're going to go to Epic Games or GOG, where the amount of people, your audience is so much lower, And as well, if during those sales, like, if you manage to be front page on Steam, that's great. That's gonna be great for sales and stuff like that. And think about it, like 75% market share might not seem like, it's like, okay, but there's still some competition and stuff like that. Well, let me remind you of the fact that the other 25% includes big stuff like Origin, Uplay, and Battle.net, right? Like things that you can't even get into because you're not part of the company, just an indie dev or whatever, right? So when we're talking about like what I've heard to before as public games distribution platforms, the 75% I'm sure is a lot higher, right? Maybe more towards 90% or something like that, where Steam really becomes more of a like of a almost the only viable option, maybe the only viable option depending on who you ask. So aside from sales or discounts or whatever you want to call them, the other thing that's kind of no good about the current state of digital distribution platforms are their return policies or their refund policies. So Steam and Epic Games share a very, very similar refund policy. It's in general the same. So essentially, I'm going to strip it down a lot because there are a bunch of rules and stuff like that as to when you can refund something. But the basic things are that you can refund something if you have less than 2 hours of playtime in it, and you haven't owned the game for more than 14 days, essentially. I'm gonna give you like an anecdote about this. So one time, I think it was I want to say it was like a Black Friday sale or something like that. I don't know, some sale is happening. I was buying a bunch of games because on sale. I was like, now's the time. And in hindsight, I'm like, it's kind of not good for the developers. But at the time, I didn't even think about it, and I was just buying a bunch of games during the sale period. And I had a friend who recommended me a game called Refunked. It's like a little platformer game. Takes less than an hour to complete. And in his reasoning for why I should get it, he said, it's less than 2 hours, so you can refund it after you finish the game. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. If you play the entire game, in theory, it entertains you for the entire amount of time, but yet you can still refund it. It's pretty broken. And what it essentially does is it enforces this idea that your games must be over 2 hours to play. This is a topic I've seen on Reddit before, and it like boggled my mind. The comments people were saying like, well, you shouldn't have a game that's less than 2 hours of playtime. Like, what? Have you never played like a board game? Like, you expect to play a board game for over 2 hours or something like that? Like, this is like just a video game thing. You know what I'm saying? This is not a general media thing. No one's upset at like, I don't know, like, if you have a movie that's 30 minutes, it's a short film. It's not a movie anymore. You know what I'm saying? of course, it's going to attract maybe a different type of audience, but it's not like it's rejected as like, if you make a 30-minute movie, that's not even a movie at all. It's it's just you go even lower than 30 minutes. It's not a short film. That's just a video, right? It's a YouTube video, for example, or something like that.
Seems like
And
a
so,
fairly simple thing to fix, right? Like all they have to do is like make it like if you're under 2 hours, then there's a different proportion, and it would be that easy.
what do you mean about?
Like if
Oh,
it's
you mean like if the total playtime of the game is under 2 hours? You're saying?
yeah,
Yeah, they can definitely just I think the refund takes about 40 minutes to complete, like, on average, if you play like non-completionists, whatever. So you could just make it like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like that. Even that,
Yeah.
I mean, that's half the game, but whatever. And also, the game is only $3. So, like, come on, just give him his $3 for making that. Give him his $3. Like, don't be like that. But people are like this. Like people are actually like, you can't make a less than 2 hour game because people will just refund it. I mean, Refund has seen incredible success in that it's been bought by a lot of people, so I'm sure he actually did make a lot of money off it because there are enough people who aren't scummy who just didn't refund it, right? Like myself, I didn't end up refunding it. I was like, wait a minute, I literally can't do this. Like, like I'm literally stealing because pretty much I'm just stealing at that point. So yeah, they should just scale it. Technically, you can't do this forever. Steam and Epic Games will say like, well, we technically prevent this because if you refund the game too many times, or refund too many games, essentially, we'll essentially manually review it and see if that's like suspicious and whether you actually have a reason, because you have to actually put in a reason. But you could just say like, I didn't like it or something like that, or it didn't run on my hardware, something like that. But I'm sure if you space it out enough, right, you just you get like a $3 game every once in a while. You just have free $3 games every couple of months. It's kind of messed up. But yeah, GOG takes a different approach. It's a 30-day refund policy, and there's no playtime thing. It's just 30-day refund policy. Their thing is, I think it's a recent update to the refund policy, is that you can refund it for literally any reason. Now, there's a weird part about this because GOG has no DRM, right? Which means that you can download the game and then you can refund it, and now you still have the game, right? On Steam, if you refund it, Steam will no longer let you have the game, right? Like, I'm not sure if it's forcibly uninstalled, but regardless, there's some weird Steam token things that essentially verify that you actually own the game when you try to launch it from Steam, right? But GOG, kind of the point is that there is no DRM, which means that you can buy a game, refund it for whatever reason apparently, and now you literally just own it. They also do the same thing where if you refund too many, they'll be like, oh, it's kind of suspicious, let's look into that. But really, I mean, thinking about it, say you want to buy infinite games, right? You make an account, get a $60 game, you refund it within 30 days. You can literally refund it the next day, whatever, right? Okay, now the game is yours to keep for free, right? Now just make a new account and do it again. It really isn't that hard to get by, especially because it's $60 is not nothing, right? It takes some hours of work to acquire $60 at your job. It takes 5 minutes to make a new account. Like the in terms of pure like money saving, it would make sense in an economic, I just want to be as wealthy as possible type way to just make a new account and return the thing. I don't know how to deal with that. That sounds pretty horrible in my opinion. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, if you're doing the whole no DRM thing, maybe your or refund policy should be very strict. I mean, especially nowadays where you know what you're getting. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just look up YouTube videos, you know exactly what you're getting for the most part, right? I guess the question is, will I actually have fun in this game? Maybe you didn't. Well, it's part of like just the risk of it, right? It's like buying a movie ticket, right? You might not like the movie, but you can't go. You wouldn't expect to go to the movie theater and be like, this is a bad movie, give me my money back, right? Or else everyone would do that. A lot of people would just do that. They're like, I didn't like the movie, even if they really enjoyed it. Can I have my money back? Whatever. That's essentially what's allowed here.
Before you continue, I had this. Is the only way for you to have DRMs to tie yourself to the internet? There's no other way?
So okay, DRM, so it just stands for digital rights management, right? So I don't know if it technically needs to be connected to the internet. There are anti-piracy things that are not connected to the internet. The thing is that they can be, you should never trust something on someone's computer, like, if you get what I'm saying. So you can edit like you can edit the files, right, in such a way that deactivates whatever checking thing there is to check for that you actually bought the game legitimately. There are games that have done this, but they get cracked eventually, right? All it does is delay the inevitable. I guess you don't have piracy at launch, which is nice, right? You have piracy after a few months instead. The good thing about having the internet connected DRM stuff is that you can't edit code that's not on your computer. So if the server is the thing checking for licenses and stuff like that, then you can't actually get around that, at least not in any easy way,
Is part of the problem too that they give you unlimited keys? Because I'm thinking if you you could you could make it so that it only runs on one machine, right? So you can't pass it around, because I think that's really the end problem, is that you can just pass it around.
But can you, if it's all locally done, then you disable whatever whatever attempts to lock into your computer, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could create. Sorry, this is getting really tangential, but I wonder if you could create like a custom executable for the machine that you're on, which would be an interesting. I'm sure there's a problem with that.
Oh, like it literally just works on this computer only.
Literally just only works on this computer.
The computer is only so unique, what I'm saying, in terms of hardware.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, but hardware level anti-piracy thing. Wasn't there something about Windows 11 and like hardware level anti-piracy stuff?
I have no idea.
I feel like I recall. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up, but I thought I remember something like that. So yeah, problem with this like refunding thing is like not only do you just not give the developers the money they deserve, it's that like you disincentivize people from making short games. I talked over and over again about the $60 price point thing, right, and how I think it should be higher for AAA games and stuff like that. And a counter argument to like the whole $70 standard or higher thing is that, well, whenever you buy a game, you're taking a risk when you buy it, right? And so essentially, when you pay less, you're compensating for that risk because, yes, you get a lot of content, but $60 is no small investment, right? I get what they're saying, right? It's not. I guess it shouldn't be necessarily linear or something like that to the however you want to the quality, however you measure that. You know what I'm saying? Because you are. Oh, okay. Here's an example, right? If I charged you like say. Okay, let's say X dollars for a case of water, for example, right? Or I charge you $2X dollars for 2 cases of water. Most people don't need 2 cases of water at once. So they might be more inclined to buy the first case in case they don't actually end up using it. Because then they end up, spending less money, right? Because, well, you get it. Yes. Okay. So in this sense, it's like, that's what happens at like, especially like Sam's Club, right? Where you buy things in bulk, but the idea is that it's all cheaper, right? In part because of risk stuff, in part because you pay a membership fee, but buying in bulk tends to be cheaper because you're essentially taking on more risk that you might not use a product or whatever, and the company will likely thank you for taking on such a risk, and so you get the discount. So yeah, so I get that counter argument, and shorter games will literally just fix that problem, right? A game like Refund is $3. There is like no risk. There is no risk in that. Essentially, you lose your $3, and it's like, well. Not really a big deal for potentially 40 minutes of a fun time, which is nice. So yeah, you can no longer make like under 2-hour games and put them on any platform of any decent size, because at least on PC, because then it'll be, people will take advantage of it and refund the game when, they actually just played through the entire thing. So, I bought Refund on a whim. I bought it literally the same day I was told about it. Because it's only $3. I would not buy a $60 game based on one recommendation that I didn't know anything about. You know what I'm saying? There's a whole space of games that could be created that are just small. You know what I'm saying? Literally just small games. That'd be very, very.
Those
nice.
are kind of like relegated to like the App Store, pretty much, like mobile.
Oh, yikes! Yeah. We don't want that there. We want that here. We want small games here. It also helped a lot with indie developers, right? So, problem with indie developers now is that they're struggling to get to that 2-hour content limit, essentially, right? If they could surpass that, or if that wasn't a thing to begin with, it was all relative to the refund policy, relative to the length of your game, then that'd be great. But unfortunately, it's not. Yeah, it's pretty much most of what I have to say. I guess some other critiques about digital distribution platforms, specifically Steam. Dude, it is so buggy and so slow, it's insane. I don't even know how a company of such size, who essentially has dominated the entire PC gaming market of sales for decades at this point. What are they doing? How is it so? I don't know. I'm inclined to think that the devs at Steam are kind of bad. That's just my guess, or something. Or they don't care, because like, why would they care? There's no competition. You know what I'm saying? There's no real competition, at least. I mean, there's kind of hope in a way for Steam having to be forced to get better by competition, because there's a time when Epic Games Store was essentially no one knew it even existed, and now it's actually a known thing because they've started pushing it further. But still, I mean, the amount of people who don't use Epic Games for dumb reasons, like, oh well, it lacks features, right? Okay, it lacks features. What features does it lack? It lacks a chat. Bro, who uses the chat on Steam? Nobody. Okay, like 7 people in the entire world. Okay, so no, I mean, come on. The reason why I wouldn't want to use Epic Games Store is mostly because there's no Steam Workshop. The Steam Workshop is actually amazing. That not being a thing on Epic Games sucks, but only for games that require the Steam Work, or not require, but are good with the Steam Workshop. You can technically download mods from places like moddb.com. It's just a bit more work. You have to like download it, put it in whatever folder you need to put it into, whatever. Might have to do some extra setup and stuff like that. But there's also some pros to ModDB. So ModDB, you can update things whenever you want to. I'm pretty sure on Steam Workshop you're forced to update. Like you have to like, if the mod updates, your version will get auto updated, which is so strange. I don't get it. And for that reason, a lot of developers will not actually they'll put like some, like, I remember this for Hearts of Iron. Since Hearts of Iron mods can be pretty massive, a lot of them, and require decently large teams to work on them. And there are many iterations of versions that go through, and many of them will be buggy, right? Essentially, they have like beta versions of things. Well, they want to put the most recent version on the Steam Workshop. As a beta version that's buggy for everyone to download. So what they end up doing is essentially end up abandoning the Steam Workshop. They put like an old version on it, and in the description they'll also be like, you can get the newest version here essentially. And it's like a link to ModDB where you can just download the beta if you want to, which is the newest, or you can download like the latest stable version, stuff like that. But Steam being as bad as it is, does not have such a feature like that. So yeah, Steam needs to up their game. It's pretty trash. And also, Steam needs to not like auto mute their videos like on trailers. I hate that so much. Like, why do I have to go to every single page I go to? I have to unmute it manually. How many people want to play muted? I don't know. I don't get it. At least I wish we would remember, like if you unmute it once every time you do it in the same session, it would be unmuted. But yeah. Anyways, that's a tangent. Oh yeah, I guess another critique is 30% market share is kind of weird. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know, maybe I'll formulate an opinion about it. I'm kind of skewed though, but yeah, that's all I have to say.
What about Xbox Game Pass? Do you think that's a potential competitor?
Yeah, I was considering talking about that, but I figured that'd be a bit too much to talk about in one episode because it's more different than Steam, GOG, and Epic Games. It's a different space, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not as it's a subscription service, It's a subscription service. It's a whole different audience. I mean, is it competing? I think it's going to do a good bit to compete, yes, but I don't know. I feel like it's still tough, right? Because the same things that Epic Games lacks is also the same things that Xbox Game Pass lacks. Like Steam Workshop and stuff like that. People make the same arguments. I guess the argument for it is that it's very cost effective a lot of the times, and the fact that you can play a lot of games for pretty cheap, and also your games carry over to the Xbox console. So yeah, I guess it's hard to tell. I don't actually see it being like a huge dominating player like Steam. I think Steam, at least not for a while, I think Steam's going to be, essentially like mostly unopposed for a very, very long time.
Gotcha. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah, that's all I have to say for that.